The Marvels has been released in theaters, and it's looking like a lot of people are coming out of the woodwork to try to defend the multi-billion-dollar corporation that produced it. We got this tweet from yesterday pointing out that, yeah, it has a negative Rotten Tomatoes score, but at the same time, Man of Steel also had a negative Rotten Tomatoes score, but it was still popular amongst audiences, and it was a movie that made money. Well, jump forward to today, and now this same account is tweeting out this, showing that it now has a fresh Rotten Tomatoes score, and then with the tweet saying, where are you all at that we're posting the rotten score? I mean, which is pretty funny because this is basically implying that, see, the score is actually doing good. Never mind the fact that yesterday they were basically saying the exact opposite where, yeah, critic scores don't matter. It's audience score is what matters. But apparently they like it when it says a positive score. So yeah, basically ignore the critics unless they're saying what I like. But that's kind of beside the point right here. I mean, because I'm not talking about the hypocrisy with this Twitter account. What I'm pointing out, though, is just the simple fact that yesterday it was rotten. And now today it's saying it's fresh. So what changed? Why was there this late night ballot dump? I mean, late night critic dump of reviews that flipped it from rotten to positive. And it's because of that I'm reminded of this Vulture expose that came out a couple months ago. The decomposition of Rotten Tomatoes, the most overrated metric in movies, is erratic, reductive, and easily hacked. Now, I'm not going to go into this or read this whole article. I did a video about it a couple months ago when this came out. But just as a quick summary, when a movie is coming out, the studios will reach out to this PR firm, and the subject of this one is called Bunker 15. And what they do is they try to game the system when it comes to Rotten Tomatoes. And for people who don't know how that works, you have the audience scores and then you have the critic scores. And just because they're critics doesn't mean they're from major outlets. A lot of times it's small time people, maybe with just a blog or whatever, but they still are counted as the critic score for Rotten Tomatoes. So what Bunker 15 does is they reach out to some of the critics who have these smaller platforms or whatever, and will offer them money to review the movies for them. In October of that year, an employee of the company, that's Bunker 15, emailed a prospective reviewer about Ophelia, and that was a movie that came out in 2018. It's a Sundance film, and the feeling is that it's been treated a bit harshly by some critics. I'm sure sky-high expectations were the culprit, so the teams involved feel like it would benefit from more input from different critics. More input from different critics is not very subtle code, and the prospective critic wrote back to ask what would happen if he hated the film. The Bunker 15 employee replied that, of course, journalists are free to write whatever they like, but that super nice ones, and there are more critics like that than I expected, often agree not to publish bad reviews on their usual websites, but instead quarantine them on a smaller blog that Rotten Tomatoes never sees. I think it's a very cool thing to do. If done right, the trick would help ensure that Rotten Tomatoes logged positive reviews, but not negative ones. Because the 60% mark on Rotten Tomatoes is kind of the cutoff, because once you're 60% over, then you're counted as fresh versus right here. I mean, they're kind of lambasting this, saying like, oh, it's 55%. That's bad because you got the rotten mark. But then they're trying to praise us, saying like, oh yeah, see, now it's positive because it's 60. I mean, even though it's only a 5% different. I mean, just having that little mark right there is what makes all the difference and why people will actually do something like this. And for something like Captain Marvel, just getting enough critics to give it a positive review in order to give it that little push over the 60% mark might be something that Disney would consider doing. I mean, you look over at the score right now, you can see it's currently sitting at 62%. But the funny thing is, a lot of these smaller critics with these blogs that Bunker 15 will actually go to aren't counted as the top critics category. Those are for the critics from major media outlets. If you click over to just top critics, you can see it's still rotten at 43%. Because, yeah, I mean, Bunker 15 doesn't deal with critics like this, or companies like Bunker 15 don't deal with critics like this. They deal with the ones like this, the ones that have the smaller platforms. So am I saying that that's what they did with this? Well, no. I mean, I don't have any sources inside at Disney or Marvel, so I can't say that definitively. But what I can say, though, is if you look at other sites like Metacritic, for instance, that don't aggregate things the same way, you can see it's still only 51% amongst critics scores right now. We don't have an audience score yet, but I mean, it's not very good amongst audiences. And it seemed like that's more in line with what we're coming to expect on Rotten Tomatoes under the top critics category. So let me know what you think about all this in the comment section below. Do you think Disney was possibly trying to pay people in order to get positive reviews for this? Because I mean, this is one of the most expensive MCU movies today, and it's like one of their last major releases for quite some time. So I don't think they want to end out the year by having a huge bomb like this, but I don't know definitively whether they're actually paying for these reviews, but I wouldn't be surprised, all things considered. But if you like this video, make sure you click that like button, share the video, and subscribe to the channel if you want to stay up to date with the latest news. Thank you.